Just a quick intro. I'm Pushpak. I'm part of the early stage team here at Peak 15. I also have my colleagues Rishain and Adit who are here. We'll be here through the day. We'd love to chat with any of you as you think through, anything that we can sort of help with. Let me jump into what I wanted to talk about today. But before that, maybe I'll give you a quick intro on us as a fund. We're Peak 15. We're formerly Sequoia Capital India and Southeast Asia. We've been in business for a little over 20 years. We're a global venture fund with 6 offices, San Francisco, Dubai, Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, and Singapore. And we've been fortunate over the years to partner with many iconic companies, some of which have gone on to become household names. And hopefully we'll continue to do so with a bunch of you in this crowd over the many years. We have 3 dedicated strategies. So we do seed, which is idea stage investing. It can be 2 founders, just getting started. Just to give you guys a stat, 50% of investments we make at seed stage are before the product is released. So we're super comfortable with early risk. We do our venture business, which is typically leading a Series A financing. Company has some product, some traction, and is sort of now looking for the next leg of scale. And then we also have a growth business where we end up doing larger checks, call it 20 million plus, as companies are kind of starting to take off. So that's the quick introduction on us. But I'll jump into what I really wanted to talk about. And I think this is a message you guys are probably feeling every day, and you're seeing this, and you'll hear much of this through today as well. But there genuinely has never been a better time to build, right? If you think about it, the opportunity has become so much greater. I think many people talk about how AI raises the floor. Non-technical people like me can now build software products. What's less spoken about is that AI actually raises the ceiling, right? And I think for you guys as developers, the opportunity is to build the company of your dreams, the product of your dreams in a much more capable manner than ever before, right? Secondly, I think, and this we discuss this all the time, but AI just continues to get faster and faster. We would talk to startups where they would give us roadmaps that they would want to discuss over quarters and years, and now we're talking about days, right? The gap and the timeline compression from idea to reality just continues to bridge even further, right? It continues to get cheaper. I don't know how many of you all attended the recent open mic that Sam Altman did, where he was talking about how at least OpenAI thinks that the current capability of models will likely get 100x cheaper within the next 18 months, right? So the fact that it continues to just get cheaper every single day is such a magical, place to be. And then finally, the beauty of all of this is that it's automatic. We don't have to lift a finger. We can rely on companies like OpenAI, who spend billions of dollars on compute, who hire some of the best researchers in the world and put out these amazing models for the rest of us to be building on the back of, right? And so just to reiterate, I think there's never been a better time to build. And I also think that the prize has gotten so much bigger in terms of what you can do and what you can sort of aspire to go after, right? I started my venture investing career in 2019, and I'd say for the first 2 years, we were seeing very incremental products, a little bit prettier UI, slightly faster product, so on and so forth. And honestly, it was never fun. But I think for the first time in the last couple of years, we're starting to see what we internally term as 10x products. These are products that are effectively win-win-win. Customer support is a great example. Customer support AI is cheaper. Customer support AI is faster. It's 24/7, instantly available. But the part that, again, people don't appreciate is that customer support AI is also better. The average NPS talking to an AI chatbot is likely better than talking to a human. And so we think that these products end up being inevitable. There may end up being some temporary inertia and adoption, but we think that's a very temporary time-bound thing, and that's why you see these AI companies take off in a pretty incredible manner, right? Secondly, we think the opportunity set in terms of what you can go after has gone up in a big way. Notion costs $10 a month. Salesforce costs $100 a month. Bloomberg costs $1,000 a month, right? But that's still peanuts when you compare that to what people spend on humans and teams, which you can now effectively go after when you build these great products. And so suddenly, if you think about the size and the price that you can sort of service, that's gone up by an order of magnitude. We think the other factor is that the rails for adoption are already set. If you were building a CRM company 20 years ago, you had to convince somebody that, hey, a CRM is a better way to manage your customer relationships and put in all this data and use this piece of software. Today, if you're building a excellent AI agent company, you can effectively ride on top of their rails. It's one click, connect, and then you're off to the races, right? And then finally, that this idea that every time price comes down, adoption actually goes up by an order of magnitude, right? And so, I'm sure many of you have heard Satya Nadella talk about this idea of the Jevons paradox. But effectively, every time technology becomes cheaper, the use cases that you can kind of unlock end up becoming so much more prolific, right? And so this is the second big idea, which is the price has gotten so much bigger. And so I think the question has actually changed. What a lot of y'all are going to talk to each other and the OpenAI team about today is going to be the how to build question. But we actually think that's the yesterday question, right? The yesterday question is how to build. We think the today question is actually what to build. And that is the real question that we obsess over as a fund. That's the real question that we want to be partners to you guys as you think about. And that's the question that we think, there is a real opportunity cost for each one of you in this room as you think about where you're spending your time and energy, right? And we have this internal saying that it's not only about how hard you fight, but it's about the battles you choose. I think we're very inspired as a community where we will say we'll slug it out 24/7, be really switched on and go at it. But we actually think, fighting the right battle is equally important. And that's where we, think people should obsess a lot over. And that's what I'm going to try to do a little bit of today. I'll touch on this in two ways, right? So the what to build, let me give you a glimpse of a little bit of what we're seeing from our vantage point. Just to give you guys a sense, we probably meet 3,000-4,000 companies a year, just in India alone, and now globally probably meet 8,000-10,000 companies a year. And we end up getting to see a vast aperture of the next generation of companies being built. We think of our opportunity set in two mega waves. The first is the India opportunity itself, which I'll touch on, and the second is the global opportunity, right, where you can effectively service customers anywhere in the world. I'll start with the India opportunity. We think that this is actually a terrific time to be building from India for India. This is our internal view of what we call the reimagination of the consumer stack. But you can build a grand set of companies that go after all opportunities serving Indian consumers, right? It can be from social. What does the future of social media look like? It can be in commerce. It can be in productivity, etc. I'll call out a few examples from the portfolio just to give you guys a sense of a little bit of what we're seeing. SigIQ is a company that we backed a little while ago. They're effectively building an AI tutor. But if you think about the experience, it's a live Zoom call where on the other side you have an AI tutor that is multimodal, and you're able to have an experience that actually mirrors doing a 60-minute Zoom call with a personal tutor, right? They're starting with going after the 4th to 8th grade math and physics use case, and it's actually a pretty magical product experience. We have a portfolio company called Dash Reels, which is using the image generation and video generation capabilities of AI, models to make comics and short video to entertain consumers, both in India and globally. And then we have another company called Round One, which is using voice AI to conduct interviews and act as the first round and effectively the round one from the recruitment standpoint. And that's at least our attempt at trying to rebuild what a Naukri or a LinkedIn could look like in an AI-first world. So we think the consumer opportunities available in India are tremendous. But secondly, we also think that India software is coming of age. And there's a lot of interesting things that you can be building even on the B2B side, right? India Inc. is now very, very material. The top 100 companies in India exceeded 10 billion market cap. Just to give you guys a sense of that. And we think that they will need custom software. There is an option to build the SAP of India. There is an option to build the Epic of India. There's a ton of interesting enterprise opportunities to build these system of record companies. We also think that Indian startups actually serve as a terrific beachhead, right? They're very global in their aspiration. They're very global in their technology usage patterns. And so you can often start with India and then extend to a little bit more of a global vantage point. Some verticals in India are now starting to become very, very deep, right? So you can build for, BFSI just as one vertical, and we think that that's actually a super interesting segment to go after because Indian banks now have the technology budgets to be able to support very large companies that are trying to go after them. And finally, we think that, the mobile opportunity to go after SMBs is also abundant. Thanks to UPI and AutoPay, we're now seeing companies that are able to get to 2, 3, 5 million subscribers serving SMBs in India. And so that's to give you guys a glimpse just of what we think the India opportunity is, right? But similarly, let me touch a little bit on the global opportunity and what we're seeing. I'd say, look, the first thing is we think there will be a whole set of companies that build the new stack for agents. The OpenAI team touched a little bit on it, but we're seeing a super interesting set of opportunities where you can build the surrounding infra to support these agents. We backed a company called Mem0, which is trying to play at the memory layer. We backed a company called Hyperbrowser, which is trying to basically build these ephemeral browser environments for AI agents to go execute different tasks. And then we also are partners to a company called True Foundry, which is trying to build an AI gateway for you to route multiple models in a very secure manner, right? And so we think that there will be a new Confluent, a new Datadog, a new GitHub as people try to build the software stack for these AI agents. Similarly, we think there is the opportunity to rethink every functional role in an organization, right? Whether it's sales, marketing, product, we think there's tremendous room to reimagine what that could look like. The term that the OpenAI team used, teammates, is actually starting to become a reality. And so we think you can take every function in the organization and rethink what that could look like. We partnered with a company called Hyperbound that is basically trying to build an AI sales coach. We partnered with a company called AMP, which is trying to build an AI marketeer that does lifecycle marketing using reinforcement learning. And we're also, fortunate to partner with a company called Interpret, which tries to help product teams run analytics and feedback on, unstructured data across their customer base. But that's to give you a sense of just every role we think is sort of up for reimagination. And finally, I think we're seeing a tremendous amount of activity in going after different verticals. And that's where we think application builders have an unfair advantage. We think the models are general purpose in their capability by design, but there is a lot of last mile engineering work needed to make this successful for different verticals as you think about it, right? We partnered with a company called Arintra. Arintra does medical coding for US health systems. They effectively, in the US, every time you meet a doctor, the doctor writes a 5-page note. Somebody needs to convert that to insurance codes. Turns out AI is very good at doing that. Metaforms is going after the market research opportunity. They sell to large market research agencies like Kantar and Nielsen and Ipsos, and they help them automate a bunch of their operations so that these agencies can focus on what they do best, which is getting to the heart of consumer insights. And Sixth Sense is a company that is using computer vision to do quality detection in extremely sensitive environments. Today, they sell to some of the largest semiconductor fabs in the world, and we think that's a tremendous opportunity, right? I do want to caveat that our big learning has been that the number one rule of technology is that it only makes sense in retrospect. So all of what I'm sharing with you is in some way a little bit of looking in the hindsight mirror. We think you guys will think of what the future is, and we'd be thrilled to hopefully partner with you down the line. I'll touch a little bit on what we call the framework on how to decide what to pick, right? Because we don't want to be overly prescriptive in saying go after opportunity X or opportunity Y, but I'll try to share a little bit of how we think of what is an opportunity worth pursuing. The first question that we really ask ourselves is this idea for why now, right? We think nature hates a vacuum. If there is a problem worth solving, it is likely being solved today, right? And so every time you're trying to go after this, I think a question worth asking is why has it not been solved yet? And you hopefully want to walk away with a very compelling change that is allowing for it to be solved today. We think AI, by the way, is a terrific why now. Many things that were historically impossible now become possible, but we think that's a question worth obsessing over, which is what has fundamentally changed that allows for a new company or a new product to be built today versus sometime in the past. Secondly, we try to ask ourselves, is this both important and urgent, right? As you guys build products, you'll realize that early days, there are lots of imperfections. So the only way you get adoption and the only way you start to see early scale is if this is such an important and urgent problem that customers are willing to use even a half-baked product to begin with, right? And so this is the other thing we obsess over, which is this important and is this urgent, right? We talk a lot about what the core insight is. So usually when you're talking to VCs and you hear them say, or aha, that's usually a great sign because that you need to have some unfair insight on customer behavior, on how to build the product, on a business model design choice that allows you to actually build something differentiated. And so this is sort of another question we obsess over, which is what is your core insight as you think about this? We love companies that are thinking very deeply about capability jumps, right? I think the simple bet that you can take is that today's models are the worst that they'll ever be and that it only gets better from here. And so something that kind of works today very quickly starts to work tomorrow. And so we think companies that are building in those jagged edges today will end up having liftoff tomorrow as the capability kind of improves. And then finally, we ask a lot about what is your right to win, Why you, right? Again, if it is an important and urgent problem, if it is a large opportunity, you should expect many companies to go after it. And so we try to ask ourselves, why you, and why should we partner with you guys as we think about this particular piece? And then finally, this is something that I think is under discussed, and I think people don't spend enough time on it, which is what is the size of the prize? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Company building and building products is a really difficult endeavor. It will likely take you a decade plus. So you want to make sure that what you're doing is worth something at the end of the day, right? And so this is not as easy to forecast in the moment, but we do think it's a question worth debating as you think about where you want to spend your time and energy. And I'll finally end with a little bit of a closing note on an optimistic sense. We think AI is the race car for the mind. And let me double click on this a little bit. Jobs famously would call computers the bicycle for the mind. It allowed knowledge workers and builders to accelerate their vision. We think AI puts that on steroids and allows you to take that one notch further. And so our internal framework is that AI is actually the race car for the mind, and that you guys are hopefully going to be these amazing drivers that will take AI to some pretty incredible places. On that note, thank you so much. Our team's around today, so we'd love to chat with you and help in any way.